Welcome to episode 3 of my electricity mini-series. In this episode we will look at simple components. In the previous episode we looked at plugs, and if you'd like to watch that you can look at it here. There are three main features in an electrical circuit, and they are the power source, the wiring and a component. And in episode 1 we looked at the wiring. In episode 2 we looked at the power source, and now in episode 3 we're going to look at the component and how it can be connected to the power source via the wiring. So we're going to look at a few different simple components, and we're going to look at three specific ones, and we're going to look at different types of switches. We're going to look at some lights and bulbs and some motors. So we're going to start off by looking at a few different types of switches, and I have the three main specific type here. So the very first is a toggle switch, and this is most likely the common one that you see just about everywhere. So simply you just flick it back and forth and one of them is on, and if you flick it the other way it's off. So that's on, off, on, off, on, off, so on, so forth. And the next one is the same, where it is on a constant state or of on and off, and instead of a toggle there's a simple button, so you click it in and that'll be on, and then you push it again and it'll be off and on again and off again. And the third type is a push to make switch. Now this one you probably haven't seen that often, and it's usually used for safety. So what it means is power will only flow when it is held in. So if I let go and it clicks back up, the power will stop flowing. So the main purpose of a switch is to completely stop the flow of electricity temporarily. And how this is done is the two neutrals from the two different wires are connected together, and the lives are connected together but via a switch. And what happens is the switch breaks the circuit between the two lives, which stops the flow of electricity. But once the switch is made again, the electricity is able to flow through. Now these are small switches which are used for small components and little things, but what you're more likely to see in everyday life are these sorts of switches. So these are light switches, and this one is a toggle switch, and it is the exact same as this little one except bigger. And the wiring is pretty much the same in that the two neutrals connect together and the lives both connect to either side of the switch, which toggles it on and off. And this switch, which you're most commonly to see in a bathroom, is the same principle as this little switch here, in that you push it and it remains on without a toggle. But in this case, instead of pushing it, you pull it. So it'll click on and click off. I don't have any examples of any larger push to make switches, but that is because they are mostly just used in small circuitry for safety precautions, such as if the door of something has to be closed for the electricity to flow. Or the next thing we're going to look at are lights. So the most common type of light is a bulb, and this is the circuit diagram that you'd use to wire one, but you really don't need it because you can't possibly go wrong when wiring a bulb or a light. So this is the standard type you'd sort of see about, and you've got your two terminals here, and if you notice they don't seem to be labelled, and you think, oh, but how do I know what to do? Well, if we look back to the diagram, the live goes in one side and neutral out the other, but in fact it doesn't matter. That's right, it doesn't matter. You can put live on this side and neutral on this side, or you can flip it around and put live on this side and neutral on this side. It doesn't matter, as long as you have live touching one terminal and neutral the other. There is no right or wrong way to do it. That's all you have to do. It's literally the simplest thing there is. So this is the diagram of the original kind of light bulb, and that is a filament bulb, and it used to be the most common, but it's not seen so much more. But it's a sound principle because the electricity flows through and it comes up here to this little filament, and this is a very thin wire, and when the electricity flows through it, the electricity is dispensed as light. So this little filament here heats up and glows. So a lot of it is wasted as heat, but most importantly it glows very brightly. So as the electricity flows through, it just shines. And the orientation of the terminals really doesn't matter, because either way the electricity is going to come through, flow through and glow and create light. So it doesn't matter which way you have them around. So nearly all switches will have two terminals on the back here. This one's got two, this one's got two, this one has got two, that's a bit of plastic, and this one has got two. And this is because you have the two lives going in. You have a live in and a live out. You have a live in and a live out. A live in and a live out. A live in and a live out. And these don't matter which orientation you put them in. You can have a live coming in, a live coming out, a live coming in, a live coming out. All that matters is that you have two lives connected to the switch, because otherwise it won't work. You can do it. The third thing we're going to look at are motors, and I think this is the most interesting because this has the most applications, because motors are used in absolutely everything. They are used in your fridge, they are used in your car, they are used in your microwave, they are used in your toaster, they are used in your tools, they are used in your office, they are used in your water cooler. Anything you can think of likely has a motor. But the interesting thing is that they vary in all shapes and sizes. So here we have a tiny little motor which I took out of a DVD player, and this is so small it can run off a battery. But there are bigger options. This I took out of a microwave, and you can watch that video here if you want, and it's a smaller, well it's bigger actually, and it has a fan blade. But we can go bigger again, and here is a windshield wiper motor that came off a car, but we can go bigger still. This is my collection of motors, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's even this massive one here in the back. Now there are many different types of motors, but the most common, just like this one, creates continuous circular motion at a constant pace. But other types of motors, called stepper motors, create incremental motion, and this means that, like in the name, they do steps. So it will spin, stop, spin, stop, spin, stop, spin, stop, and they can spin in increments. So it can start here and it'll go boop, 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 instead of just going whoo. Now most motors can be configured to either go anti-clockwise or clockwise. Now motors are very complex, and there are lots of videos out there explaining in great detail and with ease telling you how they work, but I'm going to summarize it using one word: electromagnets. Now if you're not sure what those are, in layman's terms, essentially you run current through a loop of wire, and using that loop of wire and that electrical flow, it creates a magnet. But it's not a permanent magnet, because when the electricity flow stops, the magnet also stops or turns off. And that's about it. And using that, they're able to create constant rotation or incremental rotation. So as the summary to my electricity series, here I have this piece of machinery. Now this summarizes almost everything. So in part one we looked at wiring. So this has lots of wiring, and this is simply live neutral earth, but because it has a switch or multiple switches, it has a bit more than that. It has live, neutral and earth for each of these. But for part two we looked at plugs, and this has got a plug, and because there's a metal casing on this motor, there is a metal earth pin, and there will be an earth wire inside this wire. Then for part three we have our switches, which in this fact are the just normal switch kind, where you push it and it clicks into place. And then finally we have a motor, and in here we have our electromagnets, which cause the constant rotation of the shaft. So we'll plug her in and show it all working together. So I took this motor out of a broken desktop fan, and it is special because it is variable speed. So we'll start here by pressing speed 1, and it's going to turn very slowly. And if I hit speed 2 now, it's going to speed up, and speed 3 even more. And so this motor is very quiet, and you can see here how it is in fact constant rotation, and it's just constantly going round and round and round. If I put it back to speed 1, you can see it just going round and round and round. So this brings us to a closing point in our series, where I've demonstrated all of the simple components, and I've been able to put them together into this one large component and shows how it all works together. So thank you for watching episode 3 of this electricity mini-series, and I have done 2 previous episodes because this is episode number 3. The previous episode is available here, and that is episode 2, which is on plugs, and the episode before that is available here, and that is episode 1, which is on simple wiring. So thank you for watching. Hopefully with both of these videos and this video now, you'll have a greater understanding of all the different things around you.